So I would like to throw the floor open to any questions or comments you have for any of our presenters. Don't be shy. Yes.
So my comment is wow, like really, because we've seen this, we've done this like 16 times. And I think many of us, I'm not sure if any of you students who presented today have been here for any of the previous ones. They have been good, but the style, like the way you are presenting, it's unbelievable. And I'm actually wondering if all, because most of the participants in the previous challenges were like raised in Czech Republic, studied in Czech Republic, and came here like later, just like me. And I wonder if we went through American education, if we would have a different presentation style, because I can see a big impact of how you're like taught to present and speak. So that's really like, I'm very impressed. If anybody thought like coming here, you know, there will be like a few students presenting something. This is like really high level. So I'm really impressed. My question is to all of you, but if anybody has like a, you know, some concrete comment to it. Did it ever help you in your life, the fact that you speak English like native speakers and at the same time you speak Czech to some extent, or you understand Czech culture, anything? Like, was there ever a situation where it really helped you, like to be both, like know the English language and the culture and also the Czech one? So if anybody has any like nice experience with that that comes to mind, I would like to hear about it.
Who would like to jump in? That's a softball.
I think right now is a perfect example of the ability to like understand a different culture and speak a different language, just because in New York, I felt like I've had a little bit of a hard time, you know, meeting other Czech and Slovak people, but I met Professor Harwood and he, you know, invited me to Czech and Slovak conversation hour. And if I hadn't been invited to that or been in contact with Professor Harwood, then I wouldn't be here today talking to all of you. So it's been very fun to be here and meet all sorts of new people.
Other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you were saying, it's just, I feel like the benefit of living as a Czech person in America is that you have your own community here, and it's like a very different in between. Because, like, the way I always felt was when I'm in Czech Republic, I feel American, and when I'm here, I feel Czech. So it's like you never really fit in anywhere. But I feel like that's why it's so special to have both, because you really form your community with people who have the same experience as you. And I feel like I've met a lot of friends who have, like, I've met a lot of very close friends because they have the same experience as me.
Any other takes on that angle?
I'll say that I have a slightly different experience because I grew up in a monolingual household. My Czech grandfather was the youngest of 11 children, and teaching them Czech was like not really the priority. It was more about keeping everybody alive type of situation. And I'm one of 4 siblings, and I'm the only one who speaks a language other than English. And I've mostly learned Czech as an adult, which has been an extremely interesting process, I have to say. And
I know.
think it's been very interesting for Professor Harwood to hear.
No, I learned it as an adult too.
Yeah. And I think it just gives you a really different perspective also because I've taught English as a foreign language. I think learning a language as an adult especially really, really humbles you. It makes you appreciate so much everybody learning English at all different ages. And I think too in business, it's really given me a different perspective. I can tell you most of publishing in the English language world is monolingual, and all of the meetings that happen at the London and Frankfurt book fairs every year, most of them take place in English. And I think it's a really nice change of pace for people if you can have a meeting in a different language, and I have had some meetings in Czech.
Nice. Any other response to that one, or any new questions from the audience, or comments?
I have one question. I have a question to Karolina. Are you aware of the Czech spats in science? Yeah, okay. Can you explain what they are?
Czech experts in science? Yeah, it's a community of experts from Czech scientific fields living abroad, and they are meeting on regular basis, I think also abroad and also in Prague, and it's a really tight-knit community. They're helping each other and sharing some of the challenges and how they overcame them, so it's encouraging.
Because you're trying to work on promoting the communication in science. There's another group in Prague, actually, it's called Science to Go. Do you know them? Yeah, there were some Fulbright scholars too who were here and then worked for them. I think this is the really future issue to really promote science to us laymen people, because we need to understand it to support it, right?
Carolina, you sort of hurried over what I thought was a really juicy and interesting part of your presentation because you were running out of time, and that was about what other factors distrust in science correlates with. Can you give us a sort of snapshot of some of those factors?
So one of the factors that the study we did looked at was political preferences. The study found some correlation between left-leaning political views and higher trust in science. In the USA, it was the case, but in some countries, it was the opposite, based on what the leaders of these parties promote. But you can say that in the USA, this is the case, that Republicans have lower trust in general than Democrats. But these claims can be really, really dangerous, because when you design a communication strategy, for example, for vaccination, you would half of the people you would just not consider, or you would think that they're a homogeneous group, which is not the case. There are some factors that affected the people's, ability to understand science is also guided by economic status, education, upbringing, and cultural setting that they're in. So there's tons of factors that affect it, but the study looked at political preferences primarily. But in 60% of the countries, there was not a strong affinition. So yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for any of our participants?
Okay, thanks for everyone. I actually have a question about, so I know this is a Czechoslovak meeting and cultural event, and I know they're different countries, so I'm very ignorant about this. Can you explain the similarities, the differences between Czech and Slovak cultures? And let's start with Rene, because he's the only Slovak.
Yeah, let's have Rene do this. I mean, I could do this because it's my job, but let's have Rene, who is a Slavic studies guy, take the helm.
I'm certainly not a professional in this field, but basically all I know is that my parents were born in Czechoslovakia, and it is essentially a country that does not exist anymore, which is kind of crazy to say that my parents were born in a country that doesn't exist anymore. But I believe that they split in 1993. Oh, perfect. Okay. So that's the one thing I basically know about it. And also, I've been trying to explore this topic through a sort of linguistic standpoint in my linguistics classes recently, and it's kind of interesting because at first, one of my professors, who my friend Charlie is also in the same class with me, was like, oh, Czech and Slovak are just dialects of each other. And I was like, is that true? I was kind of like letting my own biases kind of creep in there. But now, in a linguistic standpoint, they are two different dialects of each other, and it's sort of a thing that we call a dialectal continuum. The further a language spreads, the more different it is from the original language. But yeah, there's also many different dialects between Czech and Slovak as well in a language approach. But that's what I know.
Well, one thing that we could maybe both of us say is that you speak Slovak, right, Rene? And you never studied Czech.
I've never studied Czech.
I speak Czech, and I've never studied Slovak. But when you come to conversation now, we understand each other.
Yeah,
right?
It is true. Yes,
So
there's mutual intelligibility.
Yeah, it's about, I would say, about 90% mutually intelligible. So
Yeah.
they're very closely related languages, very closely related ethnic groups. They, for most of their history, the Slovaks were part of the Kingdom of Hungary. For a lot of their history, the Czechs were part of Austria. That all became one state in the 19th century. So it's a complicated shared history.
Yeah. Also, one more thing to add: you can actually tell where the Slovak dialects start and the Czech dialects also begin. There's kind of a very clear line, and it's where the trilled R that Czechs have. There's an isogloss there, but I'll pass it out to you.
Yeah. So exactly as you said, there is the only dialectal change which Czech has and Slovak does not have, and that's r. which like does not exist in Slovak. But then there are many other changes within Czech Republic between Bohemian and Moravian dialects, which also happened in Slovak. So there is this continuum, exactly as you said. So to your point about language versus dialect, linguists say that language is a dialect with an army and a navy. And that's really what it is. So politically, there are two languages. But in terms of what we traditionally think about, in terms of how languages are close, they're more like dialects. It's even weird for a Czech to learn Slovak because you understand each other. So to me, it's actually odd when Susanna, who is Czech, speaks Slovak, because I'm thinking, why? Like, keep your Czech and we will still, the Slovaks will still understand you. But that's how close it is. So we really are brothers. And actually this society, like, is still Czechoslovak Society of Arts and Sciences. Many other institutions split here. But we want to keep it, and we are very thankful for any Slovaks who come here and present, because like we still want to keep that. I think even though we split in Europe, here abroad, like many of those like associations did not split. They still continue to be Czechoslovak.
Speaking of these differences and similarities, and we understand each other, we sometimes Czechs, of course, make fun of Slovaks, right? And say, oh yeah, they invented the language, right? So I give you an example, right? A box, a word box in Czech is bedna, B-E-D-N-A, right? B-E-D-N-A. How is it in Slovak?
I cannot remember all.
Debna.
Debna.
Oh, Debna, right? So they just flip the letters.
Yeah.
Why?
Metathesis happens. I see a question in the back or a comment?
Czech, but terminology is not a problem. You just learn the word and you can guess the word. But terminology is a lot of difference between Czech and Slovak.
I have a question.
How do you say a branch of a tree? Branch of a tree? René? No? A česky?
Větev.
No, tak to už ne, there's no link there. Right? But terminology is not a problem.
I'd like to ask the undergraduates, you were so impressive up here. I have to feel like your undergraduate education basically worked for you. But if you're looking back, and we're not at Columbia or NYU, so you can say it and it won't get back, is there something that either you wish your college had offered you or that you had taken advantage of at your college but didn't in time? Well, let me ask our participants first, and then we'll open that question to the general audience. You're an NYU student, so you can say it, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say I wish NYU gave us access to the Columbia Language Exchange Program for elementary Czech 1. But
yeah, I hear you.
I would have taken it.
Y'all should, you should march, you should demonstrate at NYU for that. Yeah.
I thought I saw it on the oh, I see. Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Well, I'm gonna warm up my soup. I was teaching Czech at NYU, and they canceled the program.
Ooh.
It's a shame.
Other ideas about what college could have been better? Could have made your college experience better?
I mean, I feel like it's a pretty common experience, but starting college in the middle of the pandemic probably wasn't the best move. It was isolating and felt hopeless in a lot of ways. So going back, I would definitely have taken some time off. But I guess in terms of what I could have done, if I could do it again, I would also probably try to take better advantage of a lot of the resources. I think that joining one of the biological literary journals at Columbia could have been very cool and a great way to connect with my fellow students, but I never took advantage of that. So that's on me.
In your next undergraduate life.
Yeah.
Any other insights like that from our participants? Well, if not, I would like to invite you to join us for a little snack and a glass of wine, and you can approach our presenters individually. But before we do, please give them another big hand for the amazing job they did.